Well, good morning and Happy New Year, and thank you for joining us. Today is January 18th, 2022 for our Board of County Commission meeting. We'd be pleased if you could please stand and join us with invocation with Dr. Paul Lorado. And also, if I could, Paul, if you could come forward. We have a moment of silence before the prayer. We have a couple of passings lately in our community. Pete Brandt, who is recently a Cape Coral councilman, and also Kevin Wayne would like to address someone.
Thanks. John Polker, if you could just keep him in your prayers. He joined, obviously, passed in January 10th, 2022, long illness. John was co-founder of Apple Transportation and MBA Transportation, which currently serves local airports. But more importantly, on his nonprofit, John became the board president of Lee County Food Co-op, Southwest Food Bank, now known as Harry Chapin, in honor of his good friend. He also assisted in raising money for the construction of Poor Claire Sis's out in Fort Myers Beach. So if you could just keep him in your prayers. Thank you.
Reverend, if you could please.
Father God, we just thank you even for those that have passed, that you would comfort. You said, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. And I thank you for the Lee County Board of Commissioners and all the team that's in leadership here to make decisions concerning our county and our city and our region. Father, I thank you that you would continue to give them guidance and your wisdom and just help them in every decision that they make, Father. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Well, good morning. We have a ceremonial presentation this morning. Commissioner Hammond, would you like to kick it off, please?
Hey, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask Tommy Bohannon and anybody here who's with the Tommy Bohannon Foundation to come forward to the podium. Mama Lou, if you're here, come forward and bring your husband too. Anybody from the Living Word Ministries Church, just come stand right at the podium there. And then Commander Daniel Cote, if you're here from the Lee County Sheriff's Office. And Alan, come on forward, Mr. Canfield. Anybody who's here with the Sheriff's Office for this event, just come forward. We had a great event in North Fort Myers leading up to Christmas, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, where we saw this group that's standing before you here pass out thousands of toys to help out folks in our community. And so I just wanted to bring them into the commission meeting as a way to start off our new year with gratitude and thank them and recognize their efforts. And so, Mr. Chairman, if it pleases the board, I'll read into the record the resolution recognizing them. The resolution reads as follows. Whereas the Tommy Bohannon Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting young athletes from ages 5 to 18 achieve their highest potential on and off the playing field. And whereas Lucia Bonsanto, also known as Mama Lou, has been working with the Living Word Ministries Church in North Fort Myers, establishing them as a farm share food distribution center and also providing hot meals, haircuts, and clothing for the homeless. And whereas on December 11th, 2021, at the Northwest Softball Complex, Tommy Bohannon Foundation softball tournament and toy drive raised $15,000 to purchase toys for children in Southwest Florida. And whereas on December 18th, 2021, with the help of Mama Lou, the Living Word Ministries Community Center, and the Lee County Sheriff's Office, the Tommy Bohannon Foundation was able to pass out over 23 shopping carts full of toys and bikes for children from North Fort Myers and Lee County. And whereas the 14th annual Christmas outreach event was another example of the tremendous teamwork that happens every day between our nonprofits and business communities that give back to our residents and ensure that any child in need gets to enjoy a gift during the holidays. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Lee County, Florida recognizes the outstanding efforts of the Tommy Bohannon Foundation, Mama Lou and Living Word Ministries, and the Lee County Sheriff's Office in Lee County, and we wish to make it known publicly that their works have had an incredibly positive impact on the lives of our citizens and their children. It's signed this 18th day of January by our Chairman, Commissioner Pendergrass. Congratulations, folks. Thank you for your hard work in our community. And folks, I'd love to ask you to come forward and take a picture with us. And then after we take a picture, if somebody could just share a few words from the podium about your great organizations. I've got 3 copies of the resolution here. Let's give one to Mama Lou, and then one to the Sheriff's Office, and Tommy, thank you very much for coming this morning. Appreciate you. Yeah, that'd be great.
Move over to your left a little bit.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah. Perfect, perfect.
Now Tommy can block me now.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. And Tommy and Mama Lou, if you want to share a few words from the podium.
For the picture.
Oh, one more picture? Okay.
It's like Christmas morning.
Morning.
Hi. I just would like to say that, I mean, we work together real well at Christmas, but without so many men and women in our community, we wouldn't be able to, because it takes a whole entire army of people. There's so many others that are deserving as well of this recognition. So on their behalf, I'd just like to say thank you for all their hard work and labor, because there's so many behind the scenes that just quietly do every year for 17 years now. But God bless you guys, and thank you. And Mom, this is for you.
Thanks, Mom.
And like Mama Lou said, it's so many more people than just us. You know, like you said, our softball event, we had, 15 or 20 different companies that helped sponsor that event to get the toys for the kids and different things like that. But as you said, our goal is to help reach as many children in this community as possible. So, anything that we can possibly do to help the kids in our community is something that's special to us at the Tommy Bohannon Foundation. And we're truly blessed to have the support of the community and the support of the county commissioners. So we definitely appreciate everything that you guys are doing for us on the back end as well. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tommy. Sheriff Marcino repeats this over and over. There is no I in team, and when you're making tackles or you're serving your community, here at the Lee County Sheriff's Office, we're just honored to be here at your service.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much,
it.
Alan. Very good.
I just want to thank Commissioner Hammond for bringing this up, because there's so many good things going on in our community. We're doing such a good job here in Lee County, combating homeless and everything else to the community, all the partners we have together. So it's great to recognize that, because you don't see that every day on the news. You don't see the positive part of this. So thank you for bringing that forward.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Chair, and thank you all.
Okay, at this time, we move on to the consent agenda. Item to be pulled by the discussion by the board. Commissioner Hammond, would you like any item to be pulled?
I have no items.
I have none. Commissioner Kelly?
I have none.
Okay, would you like public comment on the consent agenda? Anybody wish to speak on the consent agenda items? Being none, we'll close that. Move to a motion to move the balance.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion? No discussion, motion carries. Move administrative items. Administrative item 1.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mr. Chair, thank you. Administrative item number 1 from Community Development. We asking you to authorize committee review of the proposed LDC amendments. Would ask Mr. Loveland to present the item, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dave Loveland, Community Development. The item before you is a follow-up to the discussion we had on numerous topics related to amending the Land Development Code at the December 7th work session. This is a request to move the draft amendments forward through the committee review process. Of note, there are some of the items that are still sort of works in progress, and there may be revisions that come through the committee review process. But I did want to note that at that meeting, you had a discussion about the potential hearing examiner participation in zoning hearings. So we still would need to draft some language to clarify that role as we go forward. There may be further revisions to our dock and shoreline provisions as we continue to work with the marine industry on that. And We've made some changes to the draft noise ordinance to add some exemptions related to certain holiday celebrations and the periodic exercise of emergency power generators. And we did make a correction to the pure tone definition. There was a public comment request about expanding the noise ordinance to regulate pure tone sounds. We've consulted with the sheriff's office. That would take significant funding and training for equipment and personnel to be able to administer that, and we are not recommending that as an addition to the ordinance at this time.
David, you said, what was the recommendation of the sheriff?
They had just noted that it would take additional personnel and training and equipment to be able to do that, so there would be a cost associated with that.
Were they supportive of it or not supportive of it?
They said if that's something that you want the sheriff's office to do, it would require all these extra expenses.
Okay, thank you.
And that would be true whether that was enforced through county code enforcement or through the sheriff. But right now, the sheriff's office is solely responsible for enforcement of our noise ordinance.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Question?
Commissioner Ryan? Thank you.
So Director, do me a favor, walk me through a timeline. We adopt this today. You talk about a committee review in February, but walk me through from February to when would this process start and or end?
Well, because there were a number of topic areas that were part of this, we'd probably have to split it up in terms of presentation to the committees. We wouldn't do the entire package all at one time. So it would probably be multiple months. We have to go through 3 different committees. The Land Development Code Advisory Committee, which meets every month, the Executive Regulatory Oversight Committee, which meets every other month, and the Local Planning Agency. I would envision taking all of these topics through, finalizing them, and getting them through the committee review process would probably take 3 to 4 months. So it would come back to the board probably right around summertime.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And it may come back in pieces as we do the individual parts.
Mr. Chairman, if I may ask a question, just real quickly. So as far as what's going to be proposed to the committees for review, how is it written right now in relation to the potential for the hearing examiner participation at BOCC and zoning hearings?
Well, since that was, we haven't drafted an actual set of language changes for that. That would be something that we would work with the county attorney's office to develop for presentation to the committees. It was a topic of discussion at the meeting. Not sure if it's completely resolved in the commission's mind in terms of whether that's something you want us to do or not. So if you have some direction, definitive direction in that regard today, that would help us.
Great, thank you. County Attorney, I'd also like to recognize our hearing examiners. Both are here this morning, also in attendance. So thank you for joining us this morning. Richard?
Mr. Chairman, real briefly, just to remind the board that this was the item that was discussed at your workshop in December. Until the board takes action today on those recommendations, we have not moved forward to develop the type of language that you are speaking of, Commissioner. Assuming we get an affirmative action this morning, then we would work with both the hearing officer as well as DCD and other administrative staff to draft that type of language and then put it through committee review. But because we don't have board direction until this morning, that action was not undertaken.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wayne, did you have?
You actually hit the question, so okay.
Any other questions from staff?
No public comment.
Okay. Any public comment on this item number 1? George, I believe you had a card for this. George Single. We also have some items that are dais here that was passed out by the speaker.
Good morning. I have the following comments for the proposed amendment to Lee County Noise Ordinance 1418. Regarding the staff notes shown in red for section 24.25-3 definitions, please note that it is often appropriate and advisable to measure noise for manufacturing and industrial equipment in DBC as opposed to DBA. For section 24.25-5 Prohibited Acts, staff has recommended that manufacturing and industrial noise sources be excluded from the proposed levels in Table 2 in order to be consistent with the Fort Myers Beach or FMB noise ordinance, which does not establish standards for manufacturing or industrial companies. I believe that FMB chose to ignore these noise categories since there are no manufacturing or industrial companies in FMB to regulate, which, if true, makes the staff recommendation illogical. Also, the exclusion is actually inconsistent with other local noise ordinances, such as Cape Coral and Collier County, which apply DBA and DBC sound level limits uniformly and equitably to manufacturing and industrial companies within their boundaries. It is therefore requested to not exclude manufacturing and industrial noise sources from the proposed Table 2 levels so that all entities within Lee County are equally protected under the law. There are several omissions from the proposed amendment that I would like to address. In the spirit of maintaining regulatory consistency with the City of Fort Myers Beach, Cape Coral, and even Collier County, it is requested that the grandfathering Establishment of Use Clause in Ordinance 1418, Section 6.A.2 be eliminated. Again, this will provide equal protection under the law. And finally, as I stated at the December 7th Board of Commissioners meeting, the Lee County Sheriff Office cannot enforce the pure tone provisions in Ordinance 1418, even with the corrected pure tone definition in the amendment. The Sheriff's Office does not have the proper staffing, equipment, or training to enforce all aspects of the noise ordinance, including pure tone restrictions. This deficiency has not been addressed in the amendment. It is requested that the Board of County Commissioners either increase the Lee County Sheriff's budget by at least $100,000 for upgraded sound meters and pure tone training, or revise the amendment to authorize other Lee County employees or an outside consultant to assist the Sheriff's Office with pure tone measurement and analysis tasks. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Any other public comments on item 1? Please come forward. If you have not submitted a card, please submit a card.
I have, but I didn't write it down for noise ordinance,
Okay.
but I do have a card. John Buckholz.
That's fine. Go ahead, just state your name for the record.
Okay, my name is John Buckholz. Thank you, Commissioners. I wanted to speak to you. I'm in Wild Blue. I've been elected to the board for the Aqua Shore Community Homeowners Association. I know I have a short period of time. We are experiencing noise coming from the mine, not from the mines, but from a sublease, as you know. Every morning we wake up, early in the morning, we hear this noise that vibrates into our neighborhood. It sounds like the noise from War of the Worlds, when the aliens are coming out of the ground. It's a constant hum. It's like an electrification noise. This is a beautiful community. We're 1,100 homes that are going up in this location, and we hear these noises sometimes 7 days a week, sometimes on certain mornings. On a typical Saturday morning, I go out the back doors, I go out to a beautiful screened environment, I look out over a preserve, I hear the birds, I hear quietness, and then I hear this noise of just constant repetitive It's constant, and it amplifies over the lakes. We are hearing these things. This is a quality of life issue that we have. We're trying to find a way, and I know this gentleman talked about the sign, the cost for this. Maybe there's something in the rules that we can do in which maybe we can somehow hire specialists that do this. I don't think the Sheriff's Department and the police officers want to become specialists in the sound transmission issues. And the other thing, too, is we're not looking to shut down this operation. There's ways. I'm an architect. I've gone to the site. There's a machine that they just bought. When I first bought in this community 2 years and 2 months ago, there was no noise for a year. This past year, we are hearing this noise. You have lots of developments going up on Corkscrew Road, which is going to hear this noise and be affected by it. Our community is 1,100. We're at 40% occupancy right now. We've got a petition that we're sending to you. We've got almost 300 signatures right now. We will probably have another 300 in the next month, as we're now going to other communities in the area, getting this petition signed. This noise we hear, it is almost every day, we hear this sound that's emanating. They're in a metal building, a cheap metal building. It's Florida, you don't need insulation from the cold. But I'm an architect. I build lots of warehouses with reinforced concrete walls that are tilted up in 2 weeks. They can contain this noise. They can put them on concrete footings, isolators very easily, this new piece of equipment that's brand new in the last year, and then put reinforced concrete. The other thing they have, they're on around a mine.
I'm sorry, everybody gets 3 minutes, so thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments on item number 1? Oops.
Hi, my name is Mike Lucenti.
Just come to the podium, please, and state your name for the record.
My name is Mike Lucenti, also from Wild Blue. I'd like to donate my 3 minutes to John.
If you like to, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, thank you.
So thank you. I'd like to conclude with very quickly is that we're experiencing this noise. And this is something new. This is nothing we bought into. This is new. We believe that there are simple things that the developer can do. It's a very, very, the owners of the property have the ability to do things. One of the things the mine has is lots of dirt. You can do dirt mounds around this brand-new facility to try to, the sound will go over, but we need to do provisions. So what we're really looking to do is we know that we thank you for doing these noise ordinance. We do need amendments. We need to have some additional time if we can. We're asking you, can we sit down and help develop potentially some guidelines in which maybe others can do the sound testing? We're trying to get some money up to try to get the sound testing or buy equipment. It may not be the police that do this. There may be some other way to do it. We want to make sure that we have a way of, we need to find something that says we have a problem, and then we can ask them to fix the problem. We don't think it's a problem it's a big issue to change. We just have to have the ability. If we have nothing to enforce against them, we can't do anything. I can't ask them to put up a sound wall. I can't ask them to do something. We hear it. It's not as if there's a band in our backyard and the noise is so crushing. It's this, just think, every time you get up and you sit out by your pool deck and you hear this vibration, it's just constant. It's over and over and over. So what we're looking to do is we're trying to get metering definitions so we can put these things together. But we're here to help you. We're not trying to make your life harder. We're looking that we've got 2 things going for us. Wild Blue is not a 55 and older, but basically it's got families and it's got retirees that are coming in. So one, we've got a bunch of old people with a lot of time to help. And the other thing is we've got a bunch of young people who know how to use social media. And we're trying to figure out how to get some help from our developers. We've got 3, Wild Blue is Pulte, it's Stock, and it's Lennar. So we've got some deep pockets that we're going to look to help us to get this change. So it's either changed through protests, through petitions, or constantly coming to these meetings and asking for these changes. So all we're looking to do is we'd like to have a little bit more change in this ordinance. We need to have just a little bit more definition so that we have something, and we don't know what that is yet. We're just new into this. My community, I'm the first board member because they just met that time. So I want to thank you. I see I have 3 seconds, and I appreciate you hearing us today.
Thank you. Any other public comment on the land development changes? Okay, being none, we'll come back. County Attorney, would you like to, we've been talking about this for the last few months. Can you please give us some feedback about sort of the history of some of those questions we've been asked about the noise that's coming from? It's obviously, that's like an isolated issue. This is a county-wide ordinance, but this looks like it's one isolated incident in the off of Corkscrew Road area. Can you give some background on that as far as the pure tones and what your definition is?
Commissioner, it's our understanding that the Sheriff's Office has played an extremely active role out on site and have not been able to establish a violation of county ordinance. Unfortunately, in many people's minds, they believe that because they can hear something, it constitutes a violation of county ordinance. That's not necessarily the case. What I've heard here this morning might be an opportunity for the county to get involved with perhaps going down and suggesting some corrective action to the alleged violating property users' actions. But with regard to the county ordinance, the pure tone definitions that we are utilizing here in Lee County is by and large consistent with the definitions used by most jurisdictions across the United States.
And if any changes in the future, if we did change the noise ordinance, would the existing already approved business be affected, or would they be exempt from that?
Well, one of the difficulties I would have with the suggestion that we eliminate the grandfathering clause, we would have to take a very strong, hard look at that, because now you are talking about pre-existing property rights. So we would take a look at that in strong earnest before making a positive recommendation on the elimination of that.
I like your comments about the code, so maybe that is something the county administration code can identify the property in question, and maybe code enforcement could approach them to see if there's something that they could do. And meanwhile, as far as a buffering barrier, to reduce some of the noise that the residents are experiencing.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, Glenn, do you want to address that, please?
Yes, sir. Commissioners, we have indeed done that. We do believe there are some, I'll call them site modifications, although that's probably too strong. I think it's practice modifications that potentially could be made to mitigate this problem. In the meantime, just want to reiterate that you are authorizing us to move the ordinance through the committee process. During that time, we obviously have a chance to continue working on it and working with the citizens.
Exactly. Great. Thank you. Okay. Any other discussion for the board before we have a motion?
Good. That's the whole reason I know we're going through this process of authorizing review. I listened to Director Loveland. Listen, the noise issue has certainly been brought up by many, and I'm encouraged to see that we're obviously going to address that through this process. So it's not like we're adopting something today. We're actually authorizing the committee review to go through 90, 120 days. At that point in time, our citizenry certainly will be more than engaged. As someone that came from an island certainly sensitive to noise, I think we're more open-minded, and we'll certainly try to find a way to come up with some type of improvement, as staff has already indicated in their presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Hammond?
Yeah, thank you. Excellent point, Commissioner Ruane, and I agree 100% with what you just said. Switching gears to the hearing examiner piece of things today, one thing I wanted to just see how you all feel about it. The idea of when we make zoning decisions, we're making decisions that could potentially cost the county tens of millions of dollars in lawsuits or liability if we make the wrong decision here. I've always been surprised that before we go to a zoning hearing, we don't have the ability to speak with our attorneys prior to the zoning hearings because of the current ex parte communication rules. Does the board have any appetite for looking at giving us the ability to at least be briefed by our county attorney's office prior to a zoning hearing so that we can go in there with a full knowledge of what's before us that day and maybe a better understanding of what we're looking at?
Mr. Wayne?
So I agree with you, Commissioner Hammond. Obviously, we had a pretty robust conversation at the December meeting. I want to have all the tools in the toolbox. You both got here after an unprecedented amount of money we paid out in claims, lawsuits, hundreds of millions of dollars. I want to avoid that, and if this is certainly another tool that we have in our toolbox available to us for us to make the right decision, we should explore and put in place whatever is necessary, including that type of review, including the zoning examiner being at our meetings. As far as I'm concerned, whatever we can do to mitigate those damages is in our best interest. And obviously what we did in the past didn't work, and I applaud what you all have done. But as a newer person, I want to have an opportunity to certainly ask questions, bring up things. And I may not have any, but if I do, I'm always going to wonder if I didn't have that opportunity, what would have happened if? So I couldn't agree with you more, Commissioner Hammond.
Mr. Deli, do you have any comments?
I think I've heard numerous times in the community that our meetings go well, and I think that's due in large part to the preparation that we have, the information that we have prior to going to a meeting. I think anything that we can do prior, whether it's talking to legal counsel, so on and so forth individually, I think is a benefit to answer some of the questions that we may have. My concern would be is once the hearing examiner comes, someone comes to the podium and tries to change something, and the hearing examiner then has to try to react to that, and then potentially we have to react to that. And as was brought up, some of these decisions have a lot of impact in a lot of different ways. So getting information prior and putting that in is fine with me. I wouldn't want to see it be something that we have to pass on, or the hearing examiner be put under the gun right away at the podium, and then we react to that. That's my concern.
And I agree with having the communication with the attorney before the hearing, so I totally agree with that. Richard, would this motion for this item have to include that language?
Yes, sir, if you would, please.
Okay, so the motion maker would have to include that the language include having communications with the county attorney prior to the hex.
Okay. If it pleases the board, I'll make the motion then for approval of the item as presented by our staff and recommended by our staff, but also adding the ability to draft language that would allow the board to communicate with the county attorney's office prior to a zoning hearing. Does that suffice?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, we have a second. And any other discussion on that? Any objection? No objection, motion carries. Thank you. Item number 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 2 is an additional authorization for committee review of an LDC amendment for hybrid warehouses. Mr. Loveland, please present the item.
Morning again, Commissioners. David Loveland, Community Development. And in relation to the prior item and this item, I did want to take a second to thank Anthony Rodriguez, our zoning manager, and his staff, and Amanda Swindle from the County Attorney's Office, and all the hard work that they've done to pull all these amendments together for your consideration. This is an item we hadn't discussed with you previously. I sent you an email on Friday related to this. This is something we had identified as a potential future topic. It's become a little more urgent because we have a lot of these requests coming in front of us, and it is a popular item, this idea of these hybrid warehouses that are used for recreational purposes. Right now, it's not recognized in our codes. Similar problem with, like we had with food trucks, where our codes haven't kept up with some of the current market trends. And so what we're proposing is some revisions, potential revisions to allow for these hybrid type warehouses in certain conventional zoning districts, commercial zoning districts, and industrial zoning districts by right, so they don't have to go through a rezoning process. The couple that we have approved so far have gone through the plan development rezoning process and were established as a definition that's kind of site specific for that site. So we'd like to broaden that and allow it in more places, either by right or through a special exception, which is a hearing process in front of the hearing examiner to grant that. So we've got a draft. What we're seeking today is authorization, again, to move forward through the committee review process. This one we would try to advance fairly quickly because of the projects that are in the works now or under consideration. So we would try to get this through the committee reviews in February and March and back to the board as quickly as we can, probably in March if possible for at least the first hearing. If not March, then April.
Great, thank you. Any questions for staff before we go to public comment? No? Okay. Any public comment for item number 2? No public comment. We'll come back to the board for a motion.
Move approval.
A motion. We have a second. Commissioner Sandelli got his hand up first there, sorry. Commissioner Sandelli and Commissioner Hammond, thank you. Any objection to the motion? Motion carries, thank you. Item number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 3 is a transportation item, and asking you to approve and adopt recommendations for Corkscrew Road Phase 2 widening. Mr. Searchy, please present the item.
This is another good news.
Good morning, Commissioners. This item is to get your concurrence on a modification to the alignment on Corkscrew Phase 2. Phase 2 from Bellaterre to Alico Road had an existing 100-foot right-of-way. To develop a safe and good 4-lane road section, we needed 125 feet. The properties to the north are all preserved, and mitigation areas, so we selected to purchase from the south from 3 communities, the Shores, Small Brothers property, and then the last of it is ours. So we're asking to your concurrence that we realign, if you will, that existing piece of Corkscrew Road to the south.
Great, thank you. Any questions for staff before we go to public comment? Okay, any public comment, item number 3? No public comment, we'll come back to the board for a motion.
I'll move the item.
Second. Motion, we have a second. Any other discussion, any objection? Motion carries, thank you. Item number 4,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 4, asking you to adopt resolution necessary for Corkscrew Road widening Phase 2. Mr. Clemens, please present the item.
Good morning, Commissioners. Robert Clemens, County Lands. This item is a companion item to the one that was just presented. The motion is to seek approval for a resolution of necessity from a parcel that is at the east end of this alignment, and this will allow us to proceed with acquisition activities and condemnation if necessary. Any questions?
great. Any comment for staff, discussion?
I'd just like to make a comment because both these are tied together. First of all, the work is progressing. I've always said that road work takes time, patience, and money, and I want to thank our neighbors out there that have been dealing with this, but the end result will be great. Took a ride last week, drove everything from the whole length of it. The progress is really important, and I think the planning ahead, both the prior piece and looking ahead, is going to serve us well in the future. So, thank you.
There's a lot of great work on it. It's unfortunate our Wild Blue residents, someone went outside, there's some still in here, but hopefully they can hear what's happening here. There's all the improvements out there. The road is coming, so be patient though. Thank you. Any public comment on this item? Being none, we'll come back to the board for any.
Move the item again.
We have a motion.
I'll second it.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second. Any other discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, staff, for working on this project. Public hearings. Public hearing number 1.
Good morning, Commissioners. David Halverson with the County Attorney's Office. I have your first 2 public hearings this morning. These have been duly advertised. I'm providing the affidavits of publication to the clerk. Item number 1 is petition to vacate the public's interest in a portion of the 6-foot platted public utility and drainage easement contiguous to the northerly lot line of Lot 253, located at 3130 Binnacle Lane in St. James City. There were no objections to the requested vacation. If there's any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for staff at this time?
We got it.
Okay. Any public comment, public hearing number 1? Come back to the board and no public comment. Motion.
Seeing no objections, then, Mr. Chairman, I'll move the item for approval.
We have a motion. We have a second, Commissioner Sandelli. Any objection? No objection. Thank you. Item number 2.
Item number 2 is also petition to vacate the public's interest in the unimproved public utility easements centered along the common property lot lines of the platted lots at 121 Gretchen Avenue South in Lehigh Acres. There were no objections to this request of vacation either. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Any questions for staff? Being none, we'll go to public comment. Anybody wish to speak on public comment? Please come forward.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm on overtime right now. You know, when you get to 65, you're on overtime. We appreciate what you're doing, and we appreciate the request on Gretchen Avenue. That particular avenue is right behind of Gunnery Road. Gunnery Road currently, we are supposing in Lehigh, I live in Lehigh, we're supposedly making that avenue commercialized. Now to make the other street, which is Gretchen, you know, and put in this, asking for a rezoning of this, I have not seen anyone come before our Architectural and Review Board in Lehigh, an advisory board. I have not seen anyone come. I could be wrong, I'm on that board. I would ask that we come before that board where the public really is. I know that we have the public, we have public here, but nobody's from there right now. I happen to come to this meeting, and I'm asking that that particular parcel be looked at by the advisory board prior to it coming up here for this type of action. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. And staff, would you like to comment again? This is for a utility easement for 6 feet, correct?
Mr. Chairman?
Good? Yes.
If I might, yes, you're entirely correct. This is not a rezoning application. This is a request to remove the public interest in an unimproved utility easement that bisects between 2 affected lots. All the county requirements for notification to public agencies were followed in this case. Staff supports the request. It does not change any use on either of the affected properties. It merely extinguishes a utility easement.
And any type of application for zoning or development would go through community development and through zoning process, correct?
Absolutely correct. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other public comment on this item? We'll come back to the board.
We're on public hearing too.
We'll move the item.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion, any objection? Motion carries, thank you. Item 3. Morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Amanda Swindle with the County Attorney's Office. I have your 3rd public hearing this morning. This is a hearing to adopt amendments to the Land Development Code regarding limited regulation of mobile food vendors. If you recall, this hearing was originally scheduled and advertised for December 7th board meeting, at which time this board voted to continue the item so that staff could work with community leaders and concerned citizens to make changes to the ordinance. Staff has done that, and the ordinance that is before you today, we feel addresses the public concerns that were expressed previously.
Great, thank you. Any questions for staff?
I just want to publicly acknowledge all the hard work that you did. I appreciate it, Amanda, very much. I appreciate the citizens reaching out. I think the board made the right decision in continuing this, and obviously the end product is what, is what we need to obviously have. This isn't something we were looking to do. This is something we had to do. So just so the public is aware, it's not something, this is a preemption. This is why we fight for home rule. This is why we try to do the things we do. And unfortunately, the legislators think they certainly know our area better than we do. So with that in mind, I appreciate everything you did.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Thank you. Any public comment? We have some cards on this one. David Nimitz.
Good morning. I am David Mintz. I'm the Vice President of the Captiva Community Panel. I'm also the Chair of the Government Affairs Committee. I'm here to thank the Board of County Commissioners for the month's continuance that they gave last session. The extra month allowed for 7 substantive changes to the ordinance proposed by the Lee County chapter of the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association with the support of the Captiva Community Panel. And it also allowed for Captiva to discuss and better understand how the proposed provisions would be interpreted and applied to our barrier island. In short, the extra month was very productive. I'd like to specifically thank Amanda Swindle, Michael Jacob, Anthony Rodriguez, Glenn Salyer, and Dave Loveland for their willingness to work with those of us who had questions and concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, John Bullholtz. John still here? Okay. Any other public comment on this item? We'll close public comment, come back to the board for discussion.
Move the item.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. And I'd just like to say thank staff too, and thank you, Commissioner Wayne and David, for recognizing all the staff that worked hard on this and everybody working together. So the final product is going to be a good thing for Lee County. So thank you. Any objections? No objection, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we have no walk-on items for that part of the agenda, and we go to Commissioner items. Commissioner Mann, do you have any Commissioner items?
Nope.
Commissioner Hammond?
I have not.
Okay, I just wanted to, obviously, this weekend, Lee County had a tragic incident this weekend with the tornadoes hitting this weekend, and I just want to commend staff. I think we all got the call on Sunday morning, and I just want to commend Roger's staff and Richard's staff and everybody working in community development. DOT, Parks and Rec, everybody was there, EOC, all the staff working together. It was all hands on deck, and it was amazing. It was unfortunate we had to walk those grounds that morning after what happened and see the residents with what they went through that morning, but they were happy to see us. They were so thankful that Lee County was out there, so thank you to Lee County Sheriff's Department, EMS, all the staff was on the ground, so you guys did an amazing job this weekend. And I know we'll be hearing an update from your staff in a few minutes, so I just want to say thank you for your work this weekend. Commissioner Sindelli.
No, I was, like always, I think we all took a look at from the air, some of us from the ground. You know, I always feel that sometimes in the toughest situations is when we see the best in our community. And I think you're exactly right. When you walk around, you talk to the folks, and you see the people coming together. Some people that weren't even from that committee just came in to help out. It's the best of who we are. So congratulations to all.
There's one thing I also have to announce that Commissioner Hammond and Commissioner Wayne will be acting as the BOCC liaisons to the Value Adjustment Board, the VAB board. So thank you guys for volunteering for that.
Thank you. Thank you for that very kind appointment.
Remember that.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, before we leave the tornado conversation too, just wanted to thank you very much for your leadership as our chairman, getting out there in front of the cameras and also talking with the governor that morning too. Thank you very much for declaring the state of emergency. You were right there with our county management staff the whole time, and so thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
One other comment. I was out of town, and the alert went off at 6 o'clock Monday morning, and came back, and by 2 o'clock, I think when most of us had gotten out at different times, a lot of the support pieces were already in place. Salvation Army, for instance, was out there, staff handing out food, cleaning. It was going already on. It was pretty amazing. And you think about that short time, from an emergency alert to people on site helping. 6 windows, 7-hour window. It's pretty amazing. Thanks.
Amazing. Thank you.
I echo the comments. I do have a commission item.
Go right ahead, sir.
At the last meeting, I had addressed the commission that I'd received a letter from Cape Coral to potentially look for some representation on TDC. Just from a history point of view, the mayor reached out to me, and I wanted to give him a little history on what change took place, how the change took place, because it wasn't long ago, for some of us that have been in office a while, that Cape Coral had a permanent seat on the actual TDC board. Commissioner Kiker and myself worked really hard to look at the intent of the statute, and the intent of the statute was to have a municipality that remits the largest amount of bed tax really sit there. 65 of the 67 communities had that. We had an unorthodox situation where Cape Coral, being the largest population, didn't remit the largest bed tax. So with that in mind, Commissioner Kike and I, through the help of Senator Richter at the time, changed legislation to obviously make the change take place, went before and changed it. And I recognize I'm not looking to do that, but as the history has gone on, that TDC board has expanded, putting non-voting members on it. I believe most recently, Florida Restaurant Association had a non-voting member on that. I'm somewhat troubled by our inability to break down the tourist bed tax. That's how we rank people. $53 million is what we collected. More than 68% of that, we do not break it down. Cape Coral has over 5,000 vacation rentals that are captured no place other than in a category called real estate or Lee County, and of that, over $36.5 million were collected and not allocated. I think it's really important. Most municipalities want to participate, so I've worked with the county attorney who's worked really closely with me to envision a similar change that was made for a non-voting member, for adding another seat for Cape Coral, obviously is non-voting. We're now way beyond $53 million. The board is certainly engaged. Cape Coral is our largest city, certainly collects an awful lot of bed tax. Unfortunately, not the proper recognition. The latest reports I have is from a municipality point of view. They seem to be in third place in collections, not being able to identify what is actually vacation rentals. But with that in mind, I certainly would like to continue to work with the county attorney's office to change, and it's not legislation that we have to go to legislators, it's something we could do locally, to expand that board to give Cape Coral a non-voting member seat on that for all the reasons I've just cited.
Any discussions on that?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I support what you're saying, Commissioner Ruane, and absolutely have heard the same concerns that you're hearing from Cape Coral as well. May I pose this scenario? Would you be open to allowing all of the cities to have a non-voting seat on the Tourist Development Council, including Cape Coral? My thought is, if I recall correctly, so one seat is dedicated to the community that raises the most bed tax revenue, and then the other seat is a rotating seat between all the municipalities. So in a sense, if we gave all of the 6 a non-voting seat on the TDC, then obviously that vote rotates between all the committees each year, or all the municipalities each year, but it gives everybody a chance to at least be at the table even during the year when they're not in the voting seat. I think that would be a way to take what you've suggested even to the next level, but I certainly support what you're talking about. And I also truly support what you're talking about with the data. I agree 100%. We need better data on where the bed tax is being collected and how that's being broken down. And so I'd support any effort to try and help us break that down better.
The interesting, so both seats do rotate. I mean, the difference between the one seat being the highest bed, it's between 1 and 2, and that's how they rotate between Sanibel and Fort Myers Beach. I gather if there's ever a point in time where we broke the data down and someone actually got number 2, that rotation would be there. So every 2 years there's somebody sitting there, there's another municipality sitting there. So in any given year, there's only 4 people that aren't participating, okay? The difference is obviously the 2 people have a vote, the 4 people don't. I was trying to be sensitive to the fact that the board would go from 9 to potentially 13, so just trying to be cognizant of that. Since we did it before in the past and having one, adding one and just seeing how it is, we can always come back and visit that, but I think it becomes a little bit more of a confusion, okay, as we rotate. So right now, whatever the municipality is, they're on it. So do remaining get a seat, and then the following year, if they or 2 years from now they rotate, then the other 3 get a seat? Just the administration of the rotation, I think, becomes a little bit more challenging. I'm a little reluctant to have 13 people on a board. Yeah. That's probably my issue, if you will. And I really talk about this because of just trying to be sensitive. We added 1 seat before, okay, and that's what this would be. I think we have an opportunity to see how that works. And certainly I'm not saying your idea is bad. It's just a little bit more of an administrative issue.
How would you explain that to Fort Myers and Bonita Springs if they say, well, so Cape Coral gets a non-voting seat, we'd like one?
Again, I honestly didn't envision that, and maybe from an administration point of view, if we can go one step further and understand how do we do that, how do we communicate, have an opportunity, because great point of view, and I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm trying to understand the logistics. I did sit a lot with the county attorney trying to understand how do we do that. So I don't know what legislation would look like, and then obviously we'd be looking to change the bylaws, as I understand from the county attorney, into that. I'm not saying I would be opposed to that. Just from an administrative point of view, it might be a little bit more, a little bit more work, but I'm not necessarily opposed to that at all. Again, I didn't have the luxury, great comment, to be able to talk to him. The only way we could talk is here, to have the opportunity for the county attorney. But I wouldn't mind hearing from the county attorney for a minute, and I'm not closed-minded on your point of view, and I'm not really prepared to tell anyone no. More importantly, I'm just trying to look to the county attorney, having worked with them, and the curveball you just threw me, I wasn't prepared for. So
He's actually been trying to get our attention the last few minutes. So Richard Rush, if you could, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, a couple of comments, if I might. Please keep in mind that the actual voting membership of the council is set forth by special act that's adopted by the legislature and set in place. To create the additional voting seats, we would then have to seek an amendment to that special act through the legislative process. What Commissioner Ruane had suggested and what we spoke about was leaving the special act in place as it exists today, but merely amending the bylaws to create basically a liaison non-voting position for the city of Cape Coral. That would do 2 things. 1, it would not necessitate legislative action, and 2, it would not extend voting privileges to that member. We believe that the TDC and the Board of County Commissioners has the authority to create that liaison position by virtue of an amendment to the existing bylaws. Where you all choose to go from there is up to you. But please keep in mind that it would be our suggestion that unless you want to tackle the special act, that the remaining municipalities only be considered in light of a liaison position as well. To do otherwise would call into question the special act, and then we would have to seek legislative amendment to that process. But right now, all we spoke about was the one liaison by virtue of an amendment to the bylaws.
So just follow up, if I may, County Attorney. So, and I appreciate all the work you did with me, Richard. So what Commissioner Hammond suggested from a liaison point of view, the legislation would be much different. It's just obviously we're identifying in said legislation that those liaisons would be X instead of 1. You know, so with 3, okay. I don't have an issue based on what he just said. I think your idea makes a lot of sense.
I think it helps us.
From a fairness point of view, absolutely. But I think, you know, what I really would like us to do is really get to a point of seeing what we can do, and somehow, whether it's software, it brings in an awful lot of money. We have more reserves we know what to do with. We need to do a better job of breaking down 69% of the revenue where we don't know where it came from, especially if you're talking about potentially upseating or maybe even having, you know, any type of question on that whatsoever. Just really want to know where it's coming from. And more importantly, I think it's a tool from a collection point of view that would be really, really helpful, especially with vacation rentals as we're trying to avoid VRBOs and things that aren't necessarily within the code of the jurisdiction. So there's some improvements I think we make. But I love your suggestion, having heard from the county attorney, and obviously not looking to make this any more convoluted than it needs to be. I think the only issue is, you know, staff will obviously help us in the rotation. It may be a little bit confusing, but I think once we get it going, I agree with it. Great suggestion.
I just want to say, so yeah, great comment also about the funding, where the money comes from, because I think with the clerk's office should be able to identify that money where it comes from based upon strap numbers. So I'm sure there's software out there where we can identify and try to locate that, find out exactly where the money's come. But one thing I'd like to know is I'd like to hear how the TDC, have you approached anybody from the TDC about this or anything? I'm just like to hear both sides. Obviously, Cape Coral want to recognize their population and obviously give them a seat at the table, but also want to hear from the other members. We have other cities, and we have the city of Sandoval here in the audience this morning, the mayor's area, and I'd just like to hear from all the other cities to see what they think about that also.
Yeah, I mean, having sat on that board for almost 7+ years, I can tell you that conversation came up many times on how we break down real estate, how we break down Lee County, and looking at those totals. I would just like to see us maybe be a little bit more aggressive to see what we can do to make a full court effort in making sure we break down that information a little bit better. But with Commissioner Hammond's thoughts, I will make the motion to obviously allow legislation to change to have said liaison positions for the remaining municipalities that do not sit currently there as non-voting members.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. We got any public comment on that? We're taking a motion, so we have one public comment.
Good afternoon, Mayor Holly Smith, City of Sanibel. I am a seated TDC member, and I am also a hotelier in Lee County. I think I'm the only hotelier elected official in the state of Florida, to my understanding. Thank you for bringing this forward, Mr. Wayne. I was not prepared to speak to this. As you might understand, there are 2 seats that rotate municipalities. So there are 4 municipalities that actually do the rotations of seat, 2 years and 2 years. So I did speak, when I received the letter, it was sent to me, I was a little bit surprised because I thought it could easily be considered that the 2 seats that rotated would just have a non-voting purpose. I did reach out to Mayor Gunter, and I believe Commissioner Hammond, he might have spoken to that to you as well. I do believe that we all need a voice. Even if it's a non-voting member, all of our municipalities are impacted. So I was a little surprised at only Cape Coral, when that would have ultimately made only one of those rotating seats not have a voice at the table. And I think that might be a little bit short-sighted, so it sounds like you're looking at possibly having all of the municipalities have a non-voting member, even if there is still that rotation. And I think that's a great conversation to be had. And if I can help in any way, I'd be happy to do that. I did just let the city manager know I'd like to discuss that further, and we'd be happy to further that discussion with you all. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to entertain them.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Any other public comment on this item? Being none, we'll come back to the board. Mr. Sedeli?
I'm very happy to hear, well, first of all, thank you for laying that out. I'm very happy to hear the acceptance of other people joining in. I think the more information that we have, the more connectivity we have on some of these kids' issues, the better we are going forward. So I think it was well done. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other discussion? Any objection? No objection, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, that's the last of the commissioner items. Committee appointments. Commissioner Mann, do you have any committee appointments?
I have one reappointment, Carla Brantley to the Lehigh Street Lighting District.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any public comment on that? Any objection? No objection. Commissioner Hammond?
I have 3 new appointments, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to appoint Jacob Tamanosian to the Eagle Technical Advisory Committee, Matthew Lincoln Hall to the Conservation Land Acquisition and Stewardship Committee, and Melody Schroth to the Construction Licensing Committee.
Second.
Second. Any public comment? No objection. I have one. I need a motion and a second for Ryan Lynn for Villa Palm Street Lighting Unit.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any public comment? No public comment. Any objection? No objection. Motion carries. Commissioner Sedeli, do you have any appointments? No. Commissioner Wayne?
I do have 3 new appointments, all to the Tropical Point Park. I have Norma Cruz, Tom McDomick, and Patty Bender.
Great.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Any discussion? No objection. Motion carries. Next would be county manager items.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2 quick items, please. First of all, I'd like to, publicly thank members of the senior team. Saturday, I was unable to make it to the EOC after tornadoes touched down, and they, Mr. Chair, you mentioned it earlier, they really did a superb job, but I really want a public thank you to Dave, Chris, Glenn, Pete, Mark, Betsy Clayton, Sandra Tafumine, and others, and all of our partners. They provided great leadership, and since I wasn't able to be there, I also wasn't worried about how the operation was going to be managed. So thank you all very much. Secondly, Mr. Chair, we'd like to give you an update today on human service and the transitional housing program. You'll recall, please, that last spring you appropriated about $1.9 million prioritizing family housing and with wraparound services, and asked Mr. Moore to give you a report today on how that program was carried out and what the current status is.
Great. Thank you.
Mark?
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Commissioners. I greatly appreciate this opportunity to update you on the success of the transitional housing program that was approved by the BOCC last spring, in which the county manager mentioned $1.9 million in general funds were allocated to prioritize the housing of families. And as you may recall, we were specifically looking at addressing the gap that existed between the time a family would enter the coordinated entry program until they were placed in permanent housing. There was a delay. There's some challenges with finding housing, so this program specifically addressed that gap. So I'm very pleased to share that starting back in mid-May 2021, the Family Transition Collaborative, or FTC program, has assisted 72 households consisting of 223 total individuals, with 117 of those being children under the age of 18. The FTC was a coordinated effort between the county, our nonprofit partners, as well as law enforcement. Centerstone, a local behavioral health provider, provided connection to temporary shelter in a hotel setting, clinical services, and case management during the hotel stays. Salvation Army connected households to permanent housing through rapid rehousing and case management once families were placed into permanent housing. And the Fort Myers Police Department, through their HOT team officer and road patrol, assisted with daily and overnight check-ins. As the county manager mentioned, on-site wraparound services such as employment fairs and vaccination clinics were delivered throughout the program duration. Food and laundry services were also available for all participants. One of the first households that entered the program exited the sheltering program to permanent housing in just 13 days. So that's an example of how quick we were able to move some of the participants. Of course, we had some challenges. The availability of affordable housing units and hotel rooms were amongst the greatest of those. Of the program exits, to date, 61 households have exited the FTC hotel sheltering program. Of the program exits, 50, or 81.9%, were to permanent housing or other safe sheltered locations. Of the balance, 11 self-exited and may have self-resolved their issues. The hotel gave them an opportunity to get to some place of stability where they could start to begin to recover and figure a plan out. So we believe that it was successful even if we didn't move them to permanent housing, gave them the opportunity to self-resolve. Statistically speaking, it's been a tremendous success. The 11 households that remain in the hotel are expected to be placed in permanent housing prior to February 1, 2022. They've lined up homes. We're waiting for landlords to actually execute the contracts and ready the units. The success rate of this program can be directly attributed to the BOCC's direction and allocation of general fund dollars, as well as the tireless work of our Human Veteran Services staff and all of our dedicated partners. Human Services staff are available if you have any questions, and I am as well.
Great, thank you. Any questions from Mark at this time?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'm thrilled to hear about the success of the program. Roger, or Mr. County Manager, my understanding is then, so the funds have been exhausted. Do you have any recommendations then going forward?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. If it pleases the board, you know, we're in a pretty unusual place right now with housing, and it's not just Lee County, it's all over Florida and in many parts of the country. Housing, whether it's rental or housing for purchase, is become so expensive. We have more and more young families in particular who are having a difficult time finding a place to live. My recommendation to you is based on the waiting list that we continue to have even after fully expending the $1.9 million, is to repeat that program, appropriate another 1.9 from general fund reserves to continue with that program.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any public comment on that motion? Please come forward.
I understand from the Homeless Coalition that the hotel that we're speaking of, the Holiday Inn, is up for sale for $10 million. Okay. They would like to maybe utilize that for the nonprofits and bring in revenue so we can address their affordable housing issues. I was in East Fort Myers. There's all kinds of trailer sites on like Gibson Circle, Stewart, Ortez, Galaxy, that there's even some trailers that could be rehabbed if we find out who the owners are and have some affordable housing, put 2 or 3 in a thing and have it affordable, using the money to aid the nonprofits. Like I said, I've asked you guys for seed money for all the nonprofits, not for myself, just myself, but for us all. So, you know, Holiday Inn would be a good base to bring in revenue. You got the restaurant that is rented to Edison Restaurant. You've got the rooms, and it could create some jobs. Another place is the old bus station. It would be an excellent outreach for a community kitchen that all the nonprofits utilize. So using those funds that come in and then rotate them to the nonprofits. And then the county will, and the city will have, be solving the homeless issue. Understand that the library doesn't want people sleeping there. Where are they going to sleep? Am I going to sleep on these county steps or the city hall steps? It's kind of cold out there, so let's all work together. God bless. I got to get back to City Gate and help set up for lunch. I mean, we got enough food, but we need shelter. So God bless you guys, and let's all work together. I'm going to be talking with Roger a little further on some things I talked to him earlier on, and maybe we can work together to solve this problem.
John, you had a card later too, so you're not going to be here for the second card?
Somebody else can do it. I stated what I wanted to state about the homeless.
This is action for the county manager, but the holiday is in the city of Fort Myers. Thank you, though. Any other public comment on this item? Come back to the board. Any other discussion? Mr. Sindel?
Just real quick, I think we were all hoping we'd be in a different place with COVID coming into this year. Obviously, the new strain has put pressure on the ability to find affordable housing gets more challenged and everything like this. So I think the continuation of the program and the good work that's been done is something that we need to continue to support and endorse. So thank you.
And the property right is not going to go down with the policies being imposed up north. Everything's going to keep coming south, that's for sure. Yep. So thank you. Any objection to the motion? No objection, motion carries. Thank you. Commissioner Sedell, you have something else for us? I'm sorry. Commissioner Sedell, do you
Yeah, I was, this is my fault. I was out of town and my April assistant ran me up here. I had a couple of appointments, and I'd like to just run through this real quick. Hans Wilson for the Coastal Advisory Council, Anthony Loons, Harlem Heights Street Lighting Unit, Jack Thomas, Old Pelican Bay Channel OMB, and Pat Ranelli, Old Pelican Bay, again, same committee, OMB.
Second. Thank you.
Thank you, and I apologize for being late.
Any motion and a second for that? Second. Might we have a second? Any objection? No objection. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Roger, go right ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One last item, please. We'd like to ask Ms. Tapfumine to come to the podium, our Emergency Management Director, and give you an update on all of the actions taken by Lee County and our partners following the tornadoes over the weekend. Sandra.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sandra Tapfumine, Emergency Management Director for Lee County. Very happy to be here. It's been a busy couple of days. As we mentioned, the tornado did hit on Sunday morning, and National Weather Service came immediately to classify this tornado as an EF2 at 118-mile-per-hour winds. So there was tremendous damage, but it's isolated in an area of Iona McGregor. 3 mobile home parks sustained the brunt of the damage: Century 21, Tropicana, and Cottage Point. We immediately had 100 first responders approximately go out in order to do search and rescue, and they were joined by neighbors who really, there was a heroic effort to pull people from rubble, and miraculously we only had 4 minor injuries despite all the homes that were impacted. So right now the Emergency Operations Center is still partially activated. We have been working over the last couple of days. We have 3 primary objectives that we are continuing to work on. The first is to address the immediate unmet needs of the community and those that have been impacted. So what we've done is we've activated our recovery support function for human services, and that includes getting groups together like the American Red Cross, United Way, and our Department of Human and Veteran Services. They are working together to first identify what those unmet needs are, and then we're going to exhaust our local ability to be able to provide resources to those in need. We do have a number of communications coming out from our communications department on what these needs are going to be as they are presented to the community. We've already started working with some folks depending on their specific cases, but we're going to be re-looking at our website, making sure that the information is very clear as to how people can access those resources. Right now, if people have a direct need, they can dial 211, and United Way will be taking those requests, and we will funnel through our process to make sure that we're getting those needs addressed. So that is the first objective. Then we are working with our state emergency management division has sent a team down to help us with damage assessments. Our Division of Community Development has completed our local damage assessment process. And so now our next step is to join forces with the state emergency management division, and they have called down help from FEMA and the Small Business Administration. So between the 4 entities, we're going to go out tomorrow morning after they've arrived later today to do the joint preliminary damage assessment. Once we have the final standings from that assessment, then the state will have the ability to determine, based on what they find, whether or not they would like to request either a presidential emergency declaration for individual assistance, which if we would be granted that would open up different avenues for people to directly request assistance to FEMA if they have uninsured losses or underinsured losses. And there's other programs that could be opened up during that process. If they don't feel that we meet the threshold for that avenue, then they will be also looking at the agency declaration through the Small Business Administration for a declaration. And then that would open up means for people to apply for low interest loans if they were impacted by the storm. And it wouldn't be isolated just to people within those 3 mobile home parks. It could be anybody within the community that was affected. So in addition, then our third objective is to continue doing debris assessment and for our debris collection and removal, and that's through solid waste and their department. So I'm happy to entertain any questions you might have right now.
Any questions for Sandra? Commissioner Wayne?
This is a newer member and certainly have a different experience with damage assessment. Could you go into any detail of what actually takes place with damage assessment? What do you actually do?
Sure.
And when does it commence? I mean, so obviously the event was Sunday, so just give me some indication.
Absolutely. That's a great question. So immediately, actually, the first responders were the first ones that they're on scene, and they were giving us immediate feedback. We have a system that they use, an electronic system called our First Impressions Damage Assessment. So they're feeding that information to us directly, and then that helps us then go with the second team, which is Dave Loveland's team from the Community Development Department and our code enforcement officers. So they went back out based on the information from the first assessment to do a more detailed look at each of the structures. And they do an exhaustive look at all of the structures that had received damage. So now we have a more complete picture locally here. And their estimates that they came up with are 44 destroyed homes, and then we have 90 with major damage, 93 with minor damage, and then 100 that are just affected in some way, but they're still carports, garages, those kinds of things that are minor. So what they're looking for specifically, FEMA has a very specific definition for what each of those mean. So if there's a roof, for example, that is gone in that home, it is unlivable, it is considered destroyed. So they are going off of the specific FEMA definition for each of those categories, and that is how they're categorizing it. So what we do is, as I mentioned, they finish and complete their local assessment, and then we have the state and the federal teams that come in to verify that that information is accurate and that they agree with the assessment.
So first responders specifically are the people engaged with an electronic device to determine, and first responders, EMS, paramedics, fire, sheriff, all the above?
Yes, correct. So we have trained each of those agencies on how to use this system. So obviously their first priority is to do life safety, and then they are out as they do, in the community, following their life safety activities once those are complete, and they help us to just get the first wave of information into the system, and then we follow up with our teams to come in to do a more detailed assessment.
How quickly are they deployed, and how quickly do we start to determine property damage?
So the community development teams were deployed out on Sunday. So we had them out just a couple of hours after landfall, or sorry, not landfall, after tornado hit. Then the damage assessment teams concluded their assessment yesterday about mid-afternoon. So we do have some preliminary numbers from their assessment based on, because this system is tied to the property appraisers database. So we're able to pull initial estimates of loss. So we do have 7.1 million residential loss and commercial loss of about 1.2 million.
Do you have any indication how many actual individuals were part of the damage assessment team that went out and did the information or gathering?
Sure. Well, and I know we have Dave Loveland that is here. I believe we have about two people for each of your teams, and we had 8 trucks out, so it's like 16? 8 people? 8 teams? 8 people. 8 teams.
It sounds very familiar. I came here to Florida 18 years ago when Hurricane Charlie hit, and it was really the foundation of a structure safety team. Day one is really when I was part of the structure safety team. We didn't have set electronic devices, but we continued to talk about that program, talked about all the things that we would do, certified different individuals, had boots on the ground. I worked 5 days during Hurricane Charlie to try to get the assessment. Technology got much better, as you had indicated, just to try to get my arms around it. It just seems, as someone that went through this, and it was my baptism here, there's some issues. People had said, we obviously, there's not a demand for housing because nobody showed up at the shelters. I'm just curious of the process we go through, from communication to site review to financial guidance whatsoever to temporary to long-term housing, and how do we communicate to those people? How do we get that? So boots on the ground was, my experience that I did, and certainly was part of that structured safety team, really important. And we were able to give the information back pretty quickly to make an assessment. And as someone that obviously wasn't on council, once I received that mission on council, we continued to make that process. We also went through a process of really just preparedness and going through what we do once a year to try to educate people. And maybe, although tornadoes are somewhat different than hurricane, probably the same principles apply. So more curious than anything else. This is just new for me.
Yeah, this information is critical to paint the picture to FEMA as to how extensive the damages are. So it really is very important. And the state director, Kevin Guthrie, was also here. The State Division of Emergency Management Director was with us here. And he was very impressed with the capability Lee County currently has. He wants to use our model that we have built here to help other communities, other counties, to do the same, because we're able to get all of this information very quickly. Here we are only 3 days after the event, and we're able to come up with these estimates, which helps the FEMA and state teams as they come in to help us.
I have a question. So today on the ground, do we have people out there now, I don't know if you or Dave can relate to this, as far as cleanup? Getting a lot of questions either yesterday on site in person or on the phone, people asking who's going to clean this up and how this is going to happen. So obviously the instructions have been given, put the stuff at the curb. If it's private property, it can't go in the, but are we out there telling people, because some I've talked to knew and some didn't know what was the process as far as the cleanup, and also some are waiting for their insurance adjusters, if they're coming, to review the property too. I think that's the big thing. And I know the HOAs out there, that all the neighbors come together, all the volunteers are working, they're cleaning up, picking up trees and everything, but there's still the questions from the county side as far as pickup of the stuff that's put at the curb. Do we have a timeline for that?
Mr. Chair, Glenn.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, so in addition to the structural assessments that are being made, there are teams of solid waste staff doing the debris assessments as well. And as part of that, they're constructing a priority map for pickup. So we will have a portal through our debris management contractors, Crowder Gulf and Thompson, that gives us really granular look at how this is going to go. And just as a timeline, as you know, the county did open a site on A&W Bulb for citizen drop-off, so that's happening right now. The contractors are mobilizing both staff and personnel as we speak. In order for the FEMA, FDEM, and SBA assessment teams to complete their work, they're going to do that Wednesday. So we will pick up starting Thursday morning.
So that's my question. So starting Thursday, we're going to have people out starting picking up, other than what's already being picked up now, but private haulers.
Other than what's being picked up now, it'll be Thursday morning is when the trucks and the crews are on the ground.
Okay, great, thank you.
We do have one more resource that I would like to mention. We have a number of, our community is so wonderful here in Lee County. We have faith-based organizations. Team Rubicon has come in to assist us, and FGCU has reached out with volunteers that are willing to go onto people's property to help them remove the property, the debris off and put it where it needs to go. So if there is anybody that does need that assistance, we've been sharing this information, but they can dial 211 and just let them know their address and phone number, and we can connect them with these teams that are coming in to assist them immediately with getting that off of their property.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Sindelli?
Unfortunately, a lot of the discussions that we've all had out there, a lot of people don't have any insurance. And that's going to be a burden sometimes on those who have the least to lose. So I think any additional communications that we can put out to the residents on what's available to them, whether it's through us or through the county, through the state, would be important. There's a lot of angst out there. I think we can help. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anything else? Good. Any other questions for staff on this item? Okay, thank you, Sandra. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Roger.
That's all today.
You're all good?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. County attorney items.
Nothing further today, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
After all that, you have nothing to say. That's great, though. Okay, thank you. We'll go on to public comment for citizens, and the first public comment is David Grogan.
Good morning, David Grogan. I'd like to start this morning by offering some words of praise for two Lee County employees, Christine DeRamo of Commissioner Pendergrass's office and Pamela Smith of Commissioner Wayne's office. They return calls promptly, have a great attitude, and they really are the essence of what a great government employee is. The reason I'm here today is because my car was hit by someone at the Lakes Regional Library. The person backed into my car. She got out of her car, looked at the damage she caused, got back in her car, and took off. Fortunately, there was a witness that saw this happen and was quite shocked at her behavior, and he waited by my car until I came out of the library. The person was inside the library and is on film, so this should be a pretty easy case to solve. But the bad news is I'm still in a rather bizarre odyssey trying to get this solved. The responding officer went into the library, looked at the film, and said the resolution wasn't very good, which brings up the first issue that our county commissioners really need to look into. Is the county buying security cameras that are worthless, giving fuzzy images, or is it simply a matter of tweaking the settings on the camera? I then made a public record request for the footage, which was denied. The reason given was that it's exempt as part of Lee County Security System Plan. I'd be interested to know if the commissioners agree with this. Keep in mind, we're talking about a public space in a public library with no expectation of privacy. The next bizarre twist is that the branch manager informed me that Lee County law enforcement officer would need a court order or a subpoena to review the film. Fortunately, through the efforts of some county employees with some common sense, the branch manager was informed that the detective can in fact see the tape without a court order or a subpoena. The detective did get the tape and has uploaded it into the records management system, but it is waiting for the digital forensics unit to see if they can decode or convert the file into something we can play as their raw data files. There's one thing I think we can agree on. At some point, there will be a day when something much more serious happens in a Lee County public building. So these are issues that I think the commissioners need to look into and resolve. Thank you.
Great, thank you, David. The next speaker is Val Gray. Gary? And Dave, we'll get county manager to get with you after the meeting about your questions. The county attorney's office can get with you too. Thank you.
Morning, commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, people watching online or watching on TV or maybe listening on the radio. Homeless for 3 years, and on behalf of the homeless community, Happy New Year 2022. Mr. Frank, it's good to see you back again. We just had the most beautiful holiday that I have in my life. Martin Luther King is a date that I like it. It's a holiday. I love the biography, the inheritance that Mr. Martin Luther King left with his wife Coretta to each one of us in America. You know, I remember when, since I was a child, around 5 years old, 6 years old, my parents went to school because my school teachers, they were complaining about me, and my mind was, you know, floating on the moon somewhere, you know. But early in the 1960s, nobody knew about the ADD or the ADHD, you know. But since I came to the Lord when I was in my 33 years old, like I'm 60 right now, I started reading the Word of God, and I was fascinated for what God does to His people, you know. I'm a born-again, spirit-filled. I've been clean for 28 years, no more drugs, no more alcohol. After smoking 20 cigarettes a day, 2 packs a day, I'm free, and I'm free indeed. But the Lord has given me so much of Him, more and more every day. You know, it's not ending, walking and growing in the Lord. The dreams that the Lord has given to me, they are being fulfilled, you know. The book in Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 2 says that all the dreams, all the visions, all the hopes that the Lord has given to you guys are going to come to pass, you know. But we also have dreams that we have in our personal life, maybe a new job, maybe a new career, a new life, a new vacation time with your family. You know, I just want to let you know that it's going to be a busy day for you guys. There is a new harvest of homeless community, new faces, young people, old people, all kind of people out there. It's going to be a busy year for you guys, but I just want you to hold on to His love, to His hope, to His faith, to the Word of God, to the living Word of God, that He will be helping you to take the decisions and exercising the authority that the Lord has given to you this year. The conclusion is in Jeremiah 29:11. The Lord says that I have thoughts for you to prosper and bless you and give you peace. That says the Lord. To God, the Lord of hosts. Thank you so much, and we love you, and thank you for your listening.
Thank you. Next speaker is Celine Macarthur.
Good morning. As you know, my name is Celine Macarthur. I'm the investigative reporter at Wink News. I reached out to all of you last week to inform you about our series called The Working Homeless, hoping to launch a meaningful discussion about what specifically the county is doing in order to help the working homeless get housing. Now, I talked to the Executive Director of Human and Veteran Services, and we were told that we would be able to watch the process in action in order to better educate the public. And we were told at the time that the process takes 70 days and that the homeless need to be patient and they need to trust the system. Well, the working homeless tell me that they feel like they're in the dark, literally and figuratively, when it comes to the process. And they can't trust a process that they can't see. So they've asked me to help verify that process. So we still have a lot of unanswered questions that I was hoping that you can help with. For instance, how do these workers, the outreach workers and case managers, it's a tough job. How do they get it done? What is their experience and their job training? What are their expectations when it comes to actually getting the working homeless into housing? What is it that the working homeless can expect in terms of communication and services? What specifically happens during the 70 days that they're waiting? What challenges do these workers have finding? I mean, we're talking about we're in the middle of a housing crisis, a homeless crisis, and a workforce crisis. So what challenges do these workers have in helping the working homeless? Also, how can the county demonstrate proof of performance? How can the public see that the work is being done? And how much money does it cost in order to be able to accomplish this? And most importantly, we're hoping to get your take. What do you think about the situation of the working homeless in Lee County?
This is your
Please jump in.
We have no interaction. This is your 3 minutes for public comment. So,
Well, is there an opportunity? Because the public does. We've been exploring this issue in order to better educate the public, and they want to hear from the people who are entrusted to to oversee the systems and oversee the processes. You were just asking earlier about emergency operations and wanting to know the step-by-step so you could better understand it. And I think that's what our viewers are asking for. So we're hoping that you can help us shed some light on that and maybe talk a little bit about transparency and accountability. That's what people are asking for, and they want to be able to see that. And they're wondering why they can't. So I'm coming to you for a little bit of advice and guidance and maybe a conversation about this.
So this is public comment per our agenda. It was advertised. So the county manager, the staff works for him. You could contact the county manager for that. At this time, we just have no discussion. We just have public comment. So thank you.
Can I follow up with all? Now that you know what I've been looking for, can I follow up with you guys again individually?
The director of human services work for the county manager. Okay. So that would be the avenue to go to get the answers.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Next speaker, John Bolts. Is John still here? No? Okay. Any other public comment at this time? Ms. Schwab?
My name is, good morning again. My name is Yasin and I'm from Lehigh. I care about all of our citizens in the United States. I also care about Lee County and the people who are living in Lehigh. I want to thank you guys for keeping an eye out for us out there. I want to report to you all that streetlights was an issue for us. Today we can safely say that at about every block where the children has to walk to school or go to the bus stop, there is now lights. We're looking for more in other directions. I want to let you know that, look, the roads that had to be repaved, I know we have a new project for this year. We have been getting that done thanks to DOT and your leadership. I want to continue to thank you for all the things that you're doing and hope that you can do more this year. Just for information purposes, and I'm not sure if you're aware, we are having some folks that are being resettled in Lee County. They are part of our refugee effort by the United States. Specifically, some of our Afghans people, as of recent, as of about a month now. If you're not aware of it, I think you all need to know. This way we can help in the assistance in getting these people's jobs. Housing, I know it's a huge problem right now. Jobs, housing, maybe some of the training, and I've reached out to the school district and all of that, because some of these people, all of these folks had been fully vetted by our government, and all of these folks have either a green card, permits, work permits. One of the small barriers that I know of is the language. I want to let you know, however, that all these folks are ready to go to work. And Mr. County Manager, I know that you guys will take it upon yourself, let the Sheriff Department and all of that know, so that we can get these people acclimatized in our area. The projection is within about March, we should be having an additional 300 to 500 people. Currently, we have about 60, and we have already been in mode to take care of them. I don't know if you all are aware of that, but as a resident and a citizen, I think we have a need to know. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment this time? We'll close public comment. We'll come back to the board. Any other discussion? Otherwise, we're adjourned. We are adjourned. We'll see you February 1st. Thank you.